everybody. We've got two very special guests for y'all this week. I want everyone to welcome to the show Leland Bjerg and Josh Thompson. Welcome, guys.
Hey guys.
Thanks. You nailed the name. Good job.
Yeah. I was like, oh, first one down, 1 out of 2. Here we go. Yeah. That's Chris has come a long way with that after, a couple hundred episodes. He's like a pro at pronouncing names. So really proud of him.
It's a good skill to have.
Yeah.
Growth,
Yeah, put that one on the resume. Thanks for being here, guys. For both of you, it's your first time. So before we get into Berserker Monk and all that awesome stuff, let's hear your origin stories. I don't know if Leland, you want to go first. Just what got you into comics? Where did it all start for you?
Comics started for me. I mean, I think most people that love comics to some degree, they click. They're a way of telling stories that works with your brain. And I don't know. I really found that my earliest comics were Ninja Turtles and Calvin and Hobbes, and pretty quickly in there, whatever was at my grocery store in the small town I grew up in. Right, I had the magazine rack, which was still ubiquitous in the 80s and 90s, and so I was grabbing. When I was going hard, I was grabbing everything that was on our shelf, which was this weird mix of like TMNT Adventures, and then we had there was no DC. We had Marvel books though, so there was one Spider-Man book. There was Excalibur. We got some new series started up. I was collecting the New Warriors, Nova, Thunderstrike. Just I think it was somebody's
it's like a
mom
garage
who worked
sale.
Somebody's mom who worked at the grocery store, I'm sure, was just picking off a list, or the distributor was just like, here, these
might be cool.
These pumpkin kids will like these books, and I love them. I was thinking about that Nova run. Man, there's a amazing issue where Nova's got all these cosmic powers, but he doesn't know how to use them, which I actually think is a great, a pretty cool premise. And he's kind of a slacker, and he's not doing a great job of like living up to his potential. And in one of the issues, a future version of him comes and kicks his ass and is using all these amazing powers and is from an apocalyptic future where Nova failed and is there to motivate him to be better. And to this day, it's one of my favorite single issues of comics. It's kick-ass storytelling.
That is pretty awesome.
But yeah, so that was always the struggle for me, was like loving comics but not having the whole picture. In particular, when they do big crossover events, it would be a big struggle, because like Maximum Carnage came out when I was the perfect age. And so that was across all the, it was like 13 or 15 issues across all the different Spider-Man titles. And so we got a third of them. And then it was this quest for me and all my friends to go to the neighboring towns and get the issues of Amazing Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man and assemble this Voltron of cross series storytelling. So that was a big achievement. And actually, to this day, we didn't succeed. I never got to read the final issue of Maximum Carnage. I really should like find it at a con and grab a copy and finally find out how it all ends.
I don't know if send this man the $1 final issue of Maximum Carnage, please. Like,
the 25-cent bin.
I'm sure it's not crazily in demand or anything.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever live up to the hype. So you probably just might never want to read it. I don't know at this point.
Well, if I can channel 11-year-old me, it'll be
maybe
I'll have a good time.
And then so there came a point where you were like, okay, maybe I could write a script or something.
Oh,
like that.
Yeah. I guess this is only the first half of the origin story.
Yeah. Right.
So I was obsessed as a kid, and then went through the common phase of comics are kid stuff. both from pressure from my parents, and I think also just like frustration at the amount of access I had to comics. So yeah, fell off for years, became obsessed with other things, and then came across, it was the book that pulled me back into comics was Skull Kickers by Jim Zub.
It's a good one.
Came across it as a web comic, and just, it was so much fun. Fantasy, action fantasy with a sense of humor, which is right up my alley. It's like this comics like Army of Darkness, and had been kind of out of it, and was unaware of, had that sort of genre bias of, comics can be more than what I remember them being as a kid. And so yeah, got into Skull Kickers, started buying Skull Kickers, and then just from there fell back in love again, and got to, got the joy of like the 20-year gap, between when I stopped reading comics and started up again, and going back and discovering things that I didn't have access to as a kid, discovering Alan Moore and getting to read Watchmen and his Swamp Thing run, and Hellboy. I think Hellboy was what really sealed the deal for me, which was a thing that a close friend of mine was like shoving in my hands as a teenager. And I was like, comics, at the time. And now I have like all the, complete Hellboy collection on my shelf.
That's awesome.
And yeah, that was when I was like, I want to do this. I've always loved storytelling and been trying to do it through music and poetry and half finished novels, and comics was like, I'm home. This is the medium I really want to work in.
Awesome. And so now after that, Josh, what about you? So how did you get here drawing comics?
It's not going to be quite as interesting and
no, that's all right.
But yeah, I mean, I've been drawing like some of my earliest memories, and it was always, I was obsessed with Star Wars as a kid. That's all I would draw was
Hell yeah,
Han Solo and Chewbacca fighting. So, but I mean, I always was adjacent to comics for the first little while. Like, I loved the old 80s, like, Super Friends cartoon and had all those toys, was obsessed with Batman. But I never really knew, like, comic books reach such a wide audience. Like, to me, it was always just the rack at the, like, I'd go see my grandpa, he'd take me to the drugstore, I'd get a Batman off the rack, and that's what I thought comics was, like 5 comics. And then the Marvel cards came out when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And that changed literally everything for me. And I was obsessed with that. And then I found out that there was a comic store in my town. So I went to it, and it was just the most eye-opening thing ever. I mean, up until then, like, I was drawing comics. I was wanting to draw comics. I didn't know that's what I was doing. To me, my mom was always like, you're going to be a dentist who paints. And that's what I thought my life was.
Oh, God.
I didn't think art would ever be I didn't think art could be a career, And then I saw these, and that just changed my trajectory. And I was obsessed with Jim Lee, was obsessed with Image. Didn't care less about storytelling at all. Like, the first writer that I actually paid attention to the storytelling was when my friend gave me Preacher, and that would have been like 2006 or something. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, this is what a comic can be. Like, I was reading whatever new Rob Liefeld Youngblood thing. So storytelling wasn't on my radar at all.
Yeah.
And
you're just in it for the art.
Yeah. I'd had like 5-6 artists that I was always into X-Men, so I always got that. But I had like 5 or 6 artists that I just follow from comic to comic, and that was it. When they left, I stopped that comic, didn't care what the storyline was. But then you get Preacher, I unlocked, and so that was just a deep dive of all of Ennis's stuff, and then you should read this.
Yep.
Wow, then my comic collection ballooned.
Yeah.
Got ridiculous. But so I mean, I never stopped drawing, and I was always like, I'll be a comic book artist. That was always a goal, but I never knew how to do it, and I never really. It was always like, I'll figure it out eventually. And then I met up with a group of people that were all sort of in the same thing. I want to do this. I don't really know how. So we all sort of learned together, and that's where I met Leland. And yeah, we sort of learned how to make a comic together. He was already well ahead of where I was because I think he'd already actually made a comic by the time I met you.
Yeah. I mean, that's very flattering. I think I had the same feeling when you showed up with like incredible, you know, 11 by 17 pages of beautifully inked like Boba Fett comics that you were drawing.
Oh wow!
You know, I think I had the exact same feeling you did of, oh, this guy's way ahead of me, and he can draw. Which
that's awesome. So you guys were like the two puzzle pieces you needed. You're like, oh, you both thought, oh, he's way ahead, so now we could start this thing up. And obviously, so Leland, the Berserker Monk, where did that come from? Was that just an idea you've had?
If I can cut in real quick before we go there, because Josh, what everybody wants to know, did you also become a dentist?
Oh yeah.
No.
I forgot to ask. I was thinking that too. And also, where's this 11 by 17 Chewbacca comic?
Oh no, the yeah, I've got the Boba Fett comic somewhere.
Oh yeah.
But, I don't know, you know, a year removed, and you're like, oh, that looks terrible. I don't like. Well, I was working on it. I loved it, and I was going to publish it. And then a year later, I'm like, oh, I want to change this, and this.
You're your own worst critic.
Exactly.
Especially when you're staring at it too long. But
he's an artist.
Yeah, that's. So Berserker Monk, like, how did that come about between you guys?
Well, it started with an idea of the sort of trope of the like European guy who goes to Asia and like learns the way of the samurai or learns kung fu, which is, you know, like Iron Fist, right?
Right.
You know, The Last Samurai, like
The Last Samurai,
you know, yeah. And I was like, I'd love to do a flip of that. What is a like European martial art that an Asian coming to Europe could learn? And I was like, well, a Viking berserker is a fighting style. I don't, you know. And so I was like, I want to flip that. And so that was kind of the beginning. That was the seed, was just this, you know, kind of turning that trope on its head. And then from there, just wanting to, I'd been, you know, my first comic that I made that Josh mentioned, I did the common thing of being a first-time creator and trying to do something gigantic. And I got some really good advice to do short comics as I was learning. And so I started writing. I had this idea for a Berserker Monk, and I started writing short stories with this character, which is really fun with the, you know, with the fantasy sort of environment. You know, one episode I can do pirates and voodoo and magic, and another episode, you know, like a a sort of zombie rabies horror comic. You know, I had all these ideas, and this character just gave me room to play. And as I was playing, I was like, okay, what's this guy's origin story? And pretty quickly I had a bunch of ideas and I liked, and I was like, what if I just tell them all? And so that became the premise for like the first arc, is this tavern, you know, this everybody's favorite D&D trope of like a group of eclectic characters in a tavern. They're discussing this you know, this sort of folk hero, the Berserker Monk, and everybody's telling a different conflicting origin story, and they're all arguing with each other. And I don't know, I just thought that was fun. It felt kind of, I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan. If you know, it felt like that. I like the idea of unreliable narrators, and part of the mystery of the story actually being who's lying, who's telling the truth. And so I'm writing these scripts, bringing them into the workshops, and Josh liked one of them, and he was just kind of like, hey, I'm just gonna draw one of these, like, just, for my portfolio. And I'll hand it off to you, Josh, because I talk a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we were just sort of starting out, and I was starting to really want to build portfolio stuff. But the problem, I mean, I'm not a writer, so I was like making up little stories, but I was kind of frustrated with it. I don't really like writing my own stuff. So that was a good thing about going to these little workshops with all these guys, is there was a bunch of other writers making little scripts. And yeah, what Leland's wrote really spoke to me. Like, I think the first story was like about that groundskeeper that cuts down the tree, and just this old spirit comes out of the tree to haunt him. And like, yeah, I just saw all the cool visuals that could come out of that, and was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna draw this if you don't have a problem. And
And I
yeah,
was like greedily rubbing my hands, like, no,
Sure.
I guess, yeah, sure,
Yeah,
I guess
sure. I'll let you
you could
draw 'em.
draw it.
yeah, but I mean it. So then, yeah, I mean, I love the fact that they're short stories. You don't, because one thing about, yeah, when you start drawing like a long story is inevitably you start to get bored after a while. Like, you're thinking of the next cool thing. So that's one thing I love about this. You do what, like 12 pages, and you're off to, like, now we're doing the zombie cannibals, and next we'll do the pirate voodoo. And it's like there's always just an awesome new creature to design, or an awesome new like genre to tackle. So I love it. I just love the whole fantasy, like, kind of Conan thing, where the world can just be different every issue, and any cool thing you can think of is completely on the table. So I love doing it.
So
Yeah.
are the issues in this series, are they all like these short contained stories? Do they flow through some sort of long narrative, or how does it set up?
Yeah, so we got the framing device of these characters in a tavern, and each one sort of tells a story that reflects their background and reflects a way that they interacted with the Berserker Monk. And while that's happening and each of them are telling their stories, whenever somebody finishes a story, we come back to the tavern, and then we cut away to the monk himself, who is working his way towards the tavern.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the way the series is set up is we did 2 issues with 2 short stories each. So yeah, issue 1 is, I think, 20 pages. And yeah, has an 8-page story and a 12-page story that, flow into each other. And then issue 2 is 24 pages. I think it's 2 12-page stories. And then the third issue, and the final issue in this arc, is 16 pages and is a longer story that is the monk getting to the tavern and what happens when he gets there and tells his side of things.
So, whose idea was it to do the third issue through the stomach of someone? Because that's pretty gnarly. The cover of the third issue, I should say. That's pretty good.
I actually, yeah, it was definitely Leland's, because I was actually going back to our chat history, because there was some picture I posted to you a long time ago I was trying to find, and I actually found that rough that you originally drew.
Oh.
You're with a hole in it, and then another
It's like a circle.
other side. So
That's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, I think like some clip art of somebody meditating
In the middle. Yeah, because I when you were talking about Preacher earlier, Josh, that's like what it reminded me of, like a Preacher cover to me. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Nice.
So the Kickstarter's going on right now. Let's talk about it. So this is the first time you've released these issues, correct? Or have you had them printed before? Or?
Yeah, we've done issues 1 and 2.
Okay.
Just gone to our local printer, who is amazing, and at this point I've got a good relationship with them because they printed like 5 or 6 comics for me at least. so yeah, 1 and 2 we did, and we had all this. We were really excited. We had all this momentum. We printed issue 2 right before COVID
Okay.
hit, and I remember
Yep.
I went out to Vancouver Fan Expo and was like, hawking it out there, and like as I was there and was talking to other people at the convention, it was like COVID fear was ramping up. The
Yeah. Yep.
the cruise ship that was like
In Tokyo.
full of people. Yeah, they
Yep.
wouldn't let it come to land, and people were dying on the cruise ship, and we were all kind of looking at each other like we might not get to do this again for a while.
Yeah. Wow.
And
That's wild.
it was absolutely true. And so yeah, it was a real blow to our momentum. And we had, I think we were like, issue 3 was like in production at that point, and maybe even pretty much in the can.
It's pretty much.
But yeah, I think we were like sending it off to Gabriel, our colorist, and then it was just like, oh, there's no conventions. Our sphere of influence is just, we live in British Columbia in Canada, and had not really figured out social media or Kickstarter or anything like that. So we just had this project that we were excited about and kind of sitting on. And so over the course of COVID, I worked on another book called Capsules, which is about a couple trapped in an escape pod in deep space trying to deal with PTSD, and it's like a drama. It's like a drama. It's very different from Berserker Monk.
Yeah.
But I did a Kickstarter for it, and it went really well. And I was like, oh, these doors have been flung open. Here's this way to put comics out that we weren't aware of. And oh, I have this awesome series that Josh and I did that we've been waiting for a reason to print the 3rd issue, and here it is. Like,
that's awesome.
cons are coming back. It's time to jump back in and get this, finish this project that we were really excited about.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's already over 60% funded, right? And I would say this, your goal is relatively low compared to some we've seen. So you said the first 2 issues are already finished. This is just for the 3rd issue. Do you have any stretch goals in mind or anything like that?
We should. I'm still figuring out Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I think Josh and I, this is an area where Josh and I both still have a lot to learn, because we come up with these things, we get all excited, and we make the comic, and then then we're kind of like, there we go. And the sort of the whole part of developing it and hyping it and getting people excited about it, I'm like, I mean, I'm just like, well, Josh already drew it and it looks amazing. What more do you people want?
Right, exactly. Yeah, no. And yeah, most people, I mean, they're just in it. I know for myself, I'm just in it to see the comic, but I was just curious, and I think most of the people we talk to, they get crazy with the with all of these stretch goals and stuff. Have like quite a few starters under their belt, like 30 plus, where they're like, yeah, they do this all the time, and they know how it goes pretty much. But
yeah, and I like the one of the things we've done so many of these with different Kickstarters. I've been in the Kickstarter ecosystem for so long that the simplicity of your campaign is nice too. Like, it's literally, do you want it in a PDF or do you want it physical? And then also, do you want all 3 or do you want just one? I'd be curious to know the person that just wants issue 3 and not 1 and 2. But
yeah,
it's mostly just for locals. Like, we have lots of people in our network that have already owned 1 and 2, and so I wanted to make sure to accommodate them.
And then your only large pledge is the commissions, which, to be honest, I see what you're charging for all three physically, and for a commission, that's a good price.
Yeah.
I like when the artist is more involved in the campaign, like you are, Josh,
Yeah.
because commissions are a fun little additive to throw in there that not a lot of campaigns get to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's awesome that someone would actually want to pay a little bit more to get one of my commissions. I mean, I'm stoked. We have a couple that have for it so far.
Chris is definitely thinking about a Boba Fett commission over there. I can see
Nice.
the wheels turning.
I considered it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with all. So I mean, you do have. It's awesome that you have the samples too below of your art and like what the commissions look like too, because it's pretty freaking awesome. I don't. Yeah, that's
and
that's an awesome.
You put the size on it. Is that a backer board size, or is that a little bit bigger?
It's a little bit bigger. It's like standard just legal paper size, printer paper size, but I don't know. I have a lot of card stock that I just use. That's
it's half of an 11 by 17, so it's nice. It's like you take an 11 by 17 artboard and cut it in half. And yeah, we just like, I was just like, what size works for you, Josh? We'll just make the shipping and handling work on it, and we'll make sure we put it in like a really solid Gemini case. We'll go give those buyers that want an original piece of art, something bomb proof to ship it in.
Yeah.
And
right. Yep.
Are you asking for the commissions after the campaign's done? Because I'm curious to know what people have asked for.
Oh yeah,
we're asked. I haven't sent. Yeah, I haven't sent the. We haven't sent the message to them yet.
Oh, okay.
No request is too weird.
I was gonna say, how weird can it go? Chris is like, oh shit, I can really go.
Well, I was also really curious because I think a cool thing to do in some of these, if you're really into the book, is to get a Berserker Monk commission. Like,
yeah, right.
Stoked on that for sure.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But hey, anything and everything. I mean, that was the one we were going into this. You don't really. I mean, I've never had experience like this. So how in depth should I go with guidelines? What you can't. But I was like, whatever. I'll draw whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if you come up with something super crazy, you might not like whatever weird thing that comes that shot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I mean, the
ahead.
last thing I wanted to ask before we kind of get this to a close is, 3 issues into Berserker Monk. Do you have a plan on how long this series is, or is it ongoing, or when this is successful, the next one comes out. Where does that land in the series?
I do have a plan. Josh and we've talked about it a little bit. I have the next issue pretty much written. I know where we're going. I know how our villain I've got an idea of how things end. I'm thinking 2 more issues. I'd like to do 5. If people like it, like that's always the other part that, I'm a big fan of audience feedback. Like, if people are excited, if we get positive responses to the first 3 issues, great. I do feel like we have a nice arc here. I won't feel guilty. I'll feel like we've left readers with something satisfying if we just get over our funding goal and people are like, yeah, it was all right. I think mine and Josh's efforts would be better directed towards the next thing. But if people are stoked, if we get a positive response and folks are excited, man, I'd love to tell this whole story right to the hero's end. That would be amazing.
Well, I mean, you're over halfway there already with still 22 days to go, so that's pretty.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I'm sure you're gonna blow that away. Because I'm sure when you first start it, there's that initial funding, and then we always hear like the last 24 hours is always like a huge push too, with people getting notifications, so they go in and finally back it or something. So
yeah, you got to harass all those people that follow you and just wait, and you're just I log into the Kickstarter and just look at the like, what's wrong with you people? You've seen it.
Refresh. Yeah. Come on. What are you doing? Yeah, for sure.
Well, what I see with a lot of creators too is, your whatever, your Twitter is filled with, hey, I got this thing going on. Hey, I got this thing day after day after day. But then there's still people that have backed every one of your Kickstarters and everything, and they on the third week are just like, oh, you have a Kickstarter out? So it seems like you're harassing, it seems like you're spamming, but the algorithm is the algorithm, and some people just don't see it for some reason. So
that's wild.
Yeah. Well, and going through the experience with promoting capsules, I was plugged into the social media, everybody promoting there, and it was like, oh, I'm not annoyed by the guy who's promoting magic powder, or the fellows I worked with on Hallowed North. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one. I did a little bit of work for them on that project, but he was hyping Hallowed North at the same time issue 2 is the same time I was hyping capsules, and I wasn't bothered by him.
Yeah.
And then, when I went and looked at his feed, it was 1,000 Hallowed North posts, but it's like, oh yeah, the algorithms.
Yeah, you get one or two
through. One in 20 of those.
Yep.
I'm just, this is a good example. I'm just going to go for it and not worry, because people won't be bothered. Our AI overlords are too smart for that.
Yeah, they're smarter than me, that's for sure. Guys, I'm super pumped for the book. I know Chris is too. You definitely have a backer here, so I'm going to be reading it.
Nice.
If our viewers, our listeners, if you want them to follow you on social media that we're just talking about, lovely social media, where can we send them for you guys?
Now I have to actually check.
Oh, okay.
Josh is a social media wizard.
Yeah.
It's Josh _Thompson _art on Instagram. And I think just Josh Thompson art altogether at Twitter.
Okay.
I'm at Linktree/Leland Writes. And you can find all my stuff. You can find the Berserker Monk Kickstarter and all my various social media stuff.
Nice. Great. Awesome.
And everyone out there listening, watching, remember to check the show notes down below, because I will have a link to Berserker Monk issue 3 Kickstarter. So go check out the campaign, check out the book, and go get it funded. Guys, thanks again so much for being on.
Thanks,
we
guys.
appreciate your time, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, thanks.
Love to do that. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.